Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be playing around with some Dylusions sprays and doing a magazine collage. So I'm starting off in my large Dina Wakley Dylusions journal, and I'm just putting out some paper towel because I make a mess every time I use my inks. And I had this idea to use my sprays because I don't use them very often. So I'm starting off with a whole heap of colours in warm. The reason I'm just using one set of colours is because they're obviously water based, and if I'd used sort of blues and greens and stuff, I would have ended up with muddy colours. So always sort of use similar tones of colours, so either warm colours or cool colours in the background. So once I'd sort of put on some ink, I then smooshed my pages together so I could get a double print. I tried to take off some of the ink to get sort of a stenciled image. It didn't quite work the way I wanted it to. And then I sprayed through some fuchsia spray as well to get that darker image. So I was getting a little frustrated at this stage because it wasn't working the way I wanted to. And part of the reason is I am very impatient. I don't let things dry enough. So when I put that next level of fuchsia on, because the first layer, the sort of orangey layers, was so damp, it bled out underneath the stencil. Now that's perfect. There's nothing to do with the ink. That's just my fault, not the ink's fault at all. So, you know, it is advised when you're doing these sorts of things, leave them to dry for a little while, you know, between your layers, or you can use your heat gun, but leaving them to dry is probably a good idea. I know when Dylusions does her pages, she'll sort of spray a whole heap of pages, leave them overnight, and then come back and do other stuff to them the next day, and that's probably a good plan, really. So, but having a play with them is still lots of fun. So once I finished, I did decide I wanted to do a magazine collage on this page, and I had gone through previously, before I'd started this video, my collage collection and pulled out some possible pieces to put together. I did want to put a border on it. Now usually I use washi tape or draw something. In this case I've actually used all the Dylusions collage sheets. So these are the strips of paper at the back. I've just cut them up into strips, glued them down, and then I've just used a black Posca paint pen to sort of create that border. These two pieces are all from the Dylusions collage sheets as well. So magazine collage is kind of all about weird and wacky proportions, which I really love. I've deliberately put them over to one side because I want to put a quote on the page. So I want to make them quite big and bold. Because these are printed onto matte paper, the black on this is not very black. You can sort of see the contrast between the Posca paint pen in the border there, but it is, because it is matte, it takes paint pens beautifully. So this is where you get to sort of do your own creativity. Obviously you can just leave it as is, and particularly with the pieces that Dylusions has created on these collage sheets, she's already done some doodling over the top for you. You can either leave it as is, you can draw over the top of it if you want to change the colors of it, or you can add more yourself. I tend to do a combination of the two. I sort of draw over bits and pieces she's already drawn over, and I add a few other things. I quite like changing the colours so it fits in a little bit more with what I'm doing. However, I've found with a lot of magazine collages I tend to stick to white, black, turquoise, pink, and sometimes a yellow. I don't know why. I think it's just because of the pens I use the most, so they're the closest to me when I'm doing these things, and they're the first ones I pull out. So the best explanation I have. Try and get my words out. So you'll see here I'm using my black Posca paint pen, and I'm actually drawing around all the lines on the page, and you can see how that black is now starting to define things a little bit. So these have it's already been done on these images, but again, because of the printing process onto the matte paper, it dulls down that black. So if you want a sort of really strong edge to it, I suggest you go around and draw it in yourself. So with the face, with the hat, just putting in all the extra detail. And the good thing about this is really, I would say it's time consuming. It's not, but it's one of those things you can do as much or as little as you fancy with it. And quite often I'm usually watching something in the background and I get a bit carried away and I just keep adding stuff because I just really enjoy the process. It's not something you have to think about very hard, so you can just sort of draw and have fun. I don't know if anyone was like me when I was a kid. If you had a magazine there or something that you'd just doodle over the top of the magazine images, or, if it's a piece of text, you'd colour in all the circles. So it's that kind of thing. I find that I just am very relaxed when I'm doing it and just have some fun. The other thing I often do with my magazine collages, I tend to either give them stripy arms or stripy legs. I don't know why, I just really like the aesthetic of it. And they quite often either have pink and black stripy arms or red and black stripy legs. So again, sort of just going to those common denominator colours. So I'm sort of getting to the end of what I want to do with my collage, just adding in the pink dots in the background. It's a great way, if you do plan your colours, that you can actually sort of plan it to work with the background or be completely contrasting with the background, depending on which way you want to go. Using the warm colours on here, it does kind of blend in a little bit. So once I've finished putting on the final details, then I will start thinking about putting on the quote I want to write on the page. So I had this journal which I started writing quotes into. I gave up on that and have just in my phone got or on my Facebook page a folder that I can just save quotes into. I find that's a lot easier, but if you're a handwriting person, handwrite it out. So I really like this quote. I have no special talents, I'm just passionately curious. And it just really appealed to me because that's how I feel. I'm a sort of jack of all trades. I don't specialise in anything, but I am curious. If I've got a question, I've always got questions about things, but I suppose the difference is I go then looking for the answers, and I really enjoy that process. So, if I'm working on a page in particular, or if I've got a material and I go, well, how do I use this? I just go and use it. I just go and have a go. I play with it. I practice with it. I do some research on it, and find out all about it. So with my page, I've just written out the quote and sort of varied the size. You'll notice with passionately, it's a big word and it didn't quite fit in the space I had, but that's okay. I've written over the border and I'm quite happy to do that. Quite often I will actually write over my image as well, because I find that the quote's usually the bit that I want to focus on. I wrote it out with a thin pen first just to sort of work out the spacing, and then I've gone back in and thickened up some of my strokes and filled in the spaces so it looks like it's, always meant to fit in there, when in actual fact when you saw it at the beginning it sort of looked a bit odd and lots of funny spaces around it. So fit it in the way you can, and then you can always extend the letters or thicken the letters so it fills in the space and it looks more normal, so to speak. The last thing I'm doing with my quote is just using a white pen, and I'm going through and putting a drop shadow on it, and what this does is pushes it out from the background and makes it become sort of the focus of the piece. And that's it really, apart from then going back in and doing some more drawing on my figure, because why not? Got a white pen in your hand, you should do. So this is the final piece. You can see all the added colour, you can see how the quote fits into the page, what little bits I've added in with paint pen, and that's the finished piece. So I would highly suggest, if you haven't had a go at magazine collage, using Dylusions collage sheets is a good place to start. Obviously I'm sure you've all got magazines at home too. Just cut some different bits and pieces out of that, use a glue stick and glue them all together as well, and it works just as well. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, bye for now.